So a while back, I played the demo for this game, which was released for the NaNoRenO 2024 Game Jam, and really enjoyed it. This is Under the False Sky, IDEALIZE. Now, if memory serves, there was a lot of intrigue going on behind the scenes here. We were darting back and forth between a few really intriguing plots developing. It was building up to be a very explosive 50th anniversary celebration at this mobile city, the Ark. We have our blonde protagonists here, Shiloh and Nahum, who are both in the midst of very complicated and concerning relationships. Nahum's got a little bit overprotective of his sister, Shiloh. Shiloh is having a little bit of a groomy, gaslighty, being manipulated, romantic sexual relationship with the much older Darius, the bastard prince, who has his own connections to the royalty, not only of the land at whole, but of the city, the Ark that they live on themselves. Darius is plotting a rebellion of his own. And when the demo left off, he was in the midst of some sort of assassination attempt. During the big speech, we have the rebel faction coming from deep the lower areas of the city, led by Mari, who Darius is going out of his way to assist. Shiloh, who is being thoroughly manipulated into assisting Darius's plot, which may or may not involve turning on Mari and friends. There's a whole lot of intrigue developing. At any rate, that is what my memory serves me about the demo, what we've seen built up so far. This is the full version of the game, which released not that long after I played the demo, to be perfectly honest, but of course, me being me, it is now like several weeks later. So we're going back to this with a fresh mindset. I believe there's going to be more of a prologue at the beginning, and more interspersed throughout. The upside of me not streaming this is that I can skip through that one scene that we know is coming at one point, because that's because I mainly struggle reading scenes like that. You know what you mean. It is a important scene, but it is hard to read knowing the implications and the dynamic of the scene. So, alright, that being said.
Once upon a time, in a not too distant past, there were two siblings, a boy and a girl, born at the same time, united by blood and soul.
The twins.
Mom? Dad? Where are you going?
Take us too! Don't leave us behind! Please!
Ah, don't be ridiculous. You breath will just be a burden to us.
Honey, come on now.
Over there! Kill those rebellion bastards!
Oh no.
Everything is going to be alright, Nana. We have each other. Let's go.
Oh, those
Nana.
poor souls.
Nahum.
Confronted with the cruelties of this harsh world from so early on, these poor children had to adapt to the environment and fight for their survival, day in, day out. But despite all this, they still had each other.
Are you really sure we should do this?
We have no other choice. Unless we want to starve to death. I can...
No, it's okay. Please don't leave me behind.
We have no other choice. Unless we want to starve to death. I can also do this on my own.
No, it's okay. Please don't leave me behind.
I would rather end up dead than leave you behind.
Oh, really? Well, give me a second. I'm gonna grab something from the tent. Huh?
Oh no. Kill!
Though the first murder had initially struck fear into the twins, by the second, third, and fourth time, they had become just as numb to this feeling as the blade to its victims. After all, this world had one rule above all: kill or be killed. The strong may have a chance to live, while the weak are left to die and rot.
That tagline got mentioned in the description on the itch.io page. I remember that theme didn't really feature in the demo.
Man, this is gonna be so exciting!
But it is, as it seems to be, an important part of their upbringing.
Shh, be quiet, or we'll get caught.
Oh, right. Sorry.
Look, he's turned his back to us. This is our chance.
Get his ass.
Let go of me!
Whew. What a surprise. You kids really startled me for a moment.
You bastard! Let my sister go! What?
Good job, sweetheart.
Are you okay, Dad?
Oh.
Of course. Don't you know that you shouldn't play with knives? These things are really dangerous. You could have tripped and seriously injured yourself or somebody else. But oh my, you and your brother look pretty hungry. Coincidentally, we were just about to start dinner, and there are 2 empty seats. Well, what do you two think?
Huh?
Oh.
The mercenary's kindness was a strange feeling for them, a warmth that one would normally only give to their own flesh and blood. And despite the fact that they wanted to kill him, he took them in. He took them under his wing, that the world was a cruel place with no room for hope and peace.
Mister, we're back!
Oh no.
What?
Oh no. Dad! Dad, where are you?
The light which had offered them a comfortable warmth for several years had been extinguished. The twins found themselves alone with the orphaned mercenary's daughter and themselves once again.
Do we know her from...
And with a sense of loss, they once more wandered through the wild and dangerous lands in which they were forced to live. Until one fateful day, when the destinies of the three would be forever altered.
Stop right there. You're surrounded.
Shit.
That's the military. They were really able to track us down. What now?
Shh, we're going to be all right. We just need to be calm.
So, sir, how would you like to deal with those thieves? Infiltrating a military camp is a serious crime, and they're outsiders.
Hey, you three. Want to join the military?
Is this who I think it is?
What?
Nah.
Sir, you can't be serious. They are outsiders, savages, criminals.
And these outsiders, savages, criminals you speak of were able to raid an entire camp, fill to the brim with trained soldiers, and steal a bunch of goods, while those very highly experienced soldiers didn't even notice something as simple as that.
This is Darius, right?
So what do you guys say? Having a roof over your head, having a place to belong, and decent food is definitely better than whatever you currently have.
Like, that's gotta be Darius.
Which is probably nothing. Or else you wouldn't have to resort to raid a camp full of armed soldiers.
This guy is nuts.
I have to agree with the fool.
Hey, stop calling me that! I have a name, you know.
What do you think?
We accept.
And here we are. Enveloped in icy coldness, floating through endless darkness, one could hear desperate cries far in the far distance. Yet they were not distressing, nor blood-curdling. They sounded almost like a symphony, a melody that spoke of great suffering, carrying one along like a gentle current. The more you let go and allow yourself to wander, the closer you get to them, the lovelier and more vibrant these wonderful voices become. Oh, how very... Oh. How very... Very... Ding dong, bing bong. Torn from a wonderful, blissful dream, Shiloh's head jerked up. She found herself sitting in a conference room, surrounded by colleagues who stared at her with warm expressions. Above all, a middle-aged man with crossed arms shook his head, throwing a gentle smile her way. His name was Darius, Shiloh's commander, and...
Oh, was my speech that exhausting to listen to? It wouldn't be good if someone found you sleeping like that tomorrow. After all, we have to present our best selves in front of the great royal family, don't we?
Apologies, sir.
Moving on. It's an important day, so remember, I want you all to be on your best behavior.
As soon as he turned his attention away from Shiloh and back to the group as a whole, a weary sigh escaped her lips. How could she daydream during such an important meeting? A nudge to her hip made the young woman draw in a sharp breath. Her gaze shifted away from Darius to the person on her left.
You okay?
So her body bent slightly forward and his concerned, caramel-colored eyes met hers.
Yeah. What did I miss?
Not much.
So the third person has to be Yona.
Oh, you know, royal family this, royal family that.
Which kind of makes sense, given what we saw of them when I streamed this. The two young women sitting across from them joined their conversation before her twin brother was given a chance to reply. Before them, including the quiet man sitting silently next to the very energetic Lydia and gazing out the window, belonged to the same military unit.
Let's continue with our arrangements for tomorrow.
Pressing a button on the remote control he held, Darius projected a map onto the wall. It was divided and numbered into several sections. One by one, he went through each of the present units, assigning them to the regions they were to patrol the following day.
Unit 3B, will the team leader please stand up?
Please stand up.
Yes, sir.
Please stand up. Hey.
Just like Unit 7F, you will take over Sector 9, the plaza.
Understood, sir.
Yona was about to take her seat again when Darius stopped her.
I'm not done talking yet. This directive applies to everyone in your unit except one person. Shiloh, you will monitor the slums alongside the lower ranks and new recruits.
Like a torrential wave, a murmur of confusion spread across the entire hall.
What?
Sir? I'm sorry to interrupt you. I really don't want to question your authority, but why is our unit being split up? And what crime did Shiloh commit to be assigned to the slums?
Oh, you know. Visibly amused by their reactions, a wide grin formed on Darius's lips and he shook his head.
This is simply the punishment for falling asleep at such an important meeting. What do you think, Shiloh?
Yes, you are right, Commander.
This...
As if Darius had heard his cursing grumble, he gave the young soldier a sly look and turned to the next unit, assigning them to a region. Shiloh's eyes drifted away from the man to the window on her right. The conference room was so high up that she had a perfect view over the plateau. Tall, modern buildings towered close together, yet the soldiers were still high enough that she could see their flat roofs from above. Each one was full of people going about their daily business just like any other day. What kind of lives must these people lead? But Shiloh wasn't able to dwell on her thoughts for long, as Darius's voice grew stronger once again.
Well, now that everyone's been assigned to their respective duties, that's it for today. I've chewed your ears off long enough, and I've still got another appointment to get to. You are hereby dismissed.
As if the grip on the poor soldiers' throats had loosened, relieved sighs echoed simultaneously throughout the hall.
Phew! That was exhausting. I'm so glad it's over. Oh, and look, the sun is already setting. Oh, man.
Exhausting? You didn't even bother to pay attention.
Hey, it takes a lot of mental energy to zone out that strongly.
You're one to talk.
No fighting. You're free to quarrel when we're back at the apartment. Just hurry up. I don't want to waste much time here.
One after the other, those present got up from their seats and left the conference room. Each group was engrossed in their conversations. Some were talking about the weather or other trivial matters, others about tomorrow's event.
Sis, about tonight.
You guys, wait a second.
By now, most units had managed to leave the conference room, except for Shiloh's group. Before crossing the door's threshold, Darius's voice held them back like a wall.
Shiloh, may I have a word with you for a moment?
While still at the podium, he held a few documents in one hand and gestured for Shiloh to approach with the other.
No, you cannot.
Calm down, Nahum. You go on ahead. I'll catch up to you as soon as I'm done here.
But...
Nahum.
No buts.
Let's go, Nahum. Don't embarrass the unit by making a fool out of yourself.
Grudgingly, Nahum cast one last glance at his sister, before trotting off to go join the rest of the group. The door closed, Shiloh and Darius were the only two people left in the expansive hall. With each step she took toward the podium, Darius' smile grew bigger.
He still can't stand my guts, huh?
I don't think he's gonna change anytime soon.
Only a few centimeters stood between the two as she halted right before him. Just as she was about to say something, Darius closed the remaining distance, gently wrapping his arms around her waist and pulling her toward him. And here we go. She tried to avoid his captivating gaze, but he gave her no chance. His rough hand wandered to her cheek, his thumb gently brushing over her skin. He made it nearly impossible for her to stay composed. Her body shuddered, and almost reflexively she pressed her head more firmly against his hand, trying to be one with him to get more of this sensation. A blissful feeling rose deep within her each time her strong hand caressed her delicate skin. His focus drifted down, away from her eyes. He had a new goal in mind, to quench the desire that sparkled in her eyes. She could feel his thumb sliding from her cheek, gently grazing her bottom lip.
Sir... Darius...
Seeing her like that, he couldn't help but chuckle. He could easily understand how she felt just by looking into her eyes. Should he coax more of such expressions out of her?
I got it. Forgive me, my love.
Closing the last bit of distance between them, he firmly, yet tenderly, placed his lips on hers. The kiss seemed to loosen the tight rope around her chest, allowing her body to be swept away. She wrapped her arms around him, desperately seeking a tighter hold. Beneath thin layers of fabric, she could feel his strong, broad chest pressed against her, mirroring the intensity of their connection. She wanted to break away from his lips to draw a quick breath, but he denied her the chance. His strong hands journeyed down her back to her thighs, firmly grasping her before she could protest. Suddenly, her feet left the ground as he effortlessly lifted and placed her on the podium. Positioning himself between her legs, he maintained the closeness between them. Before he could initiate another intimate kiss, Shiloh gently placed her fingers on his lips. A look of confusion spread across his face as his mouth twisted into a pout. Having this apparent dominance over him made Shiloh's lips curl into a grin, and a satisfying feeling coursed throughout her body.
We shouldn't do it here. My unit might ask questions if I'm here for too long.
Admitting defeat, he sighed and let his head slump onto her chest, his weight providing her with a welcome sense of comfort. Her hand wandered through his wavy, thick hair, akin to the sensation of being enveloped.
So what's going on? Surely you didn't call me back just to make out with me, did you?
To make out with me? Do I look like someone who just makes out with their subordinates?
No comment.
Wow, Shy.
That
hurt.
I mean,
I'm joking. I'm joking.
objectively,
But you're right. There is something you must do for me.
that's about. That's a very heavily worded sentence there.
That's not what I meant, Zeke!
Oh no, they're struggling. They're on the struggle bus. After all that intimacy, and just the sheer depth of a physical power dynamic he seems to hold. And there's that brief moment where she got a little bit of it back on him, but feels like a large part just in general, it's a very unpleasant power dynamic. And then to end it off with, there's something you must do for me. Like, she's gonna say no? No, that's not a comfortable situation. Anyways.
Not you two! You wanna help me out here, please?
Greeted by the warmth of the early autumn sun, Shiloh stepped out of the building and onto the plaza. There they were, not far from the entrance, sitting on a park bench that was sheltered from the sun's relentless glare.
Oh, there you are, Shy. Took you long enough.
Lily was the first to notice her presence. Smiling, almost relieved, she skipped toward her as gleefully as a child. Before Shiloh could react, her comrade wrapped an arm around hers, looking up with curious eyes.
So, what exactly did he want? Did he scold you for falling asleep?
With his arms crossed behind his head, her brother and the other two members of their unit approached them. The look he gave his sister seemed strange and childishly defiant, like a kid whose favorite toy had been taken from him. She couldn't quite understand the feeling, but the longer she maintained eye contact with him, the more her chest began to ache.
No. You know our commander. He rarely gives others a hard time. He called me to specify my assignment and location for tomorrow.
Come on now. The heat is absolutely insufferable.
Yes, ma'am.
Don't call me that.
You're the boss. The bastard prince goes home. Late afternoon sun had already eased its relentless grip on the Ark by the time Darius pulled up onto the gateway of a grand manor. The structure was built in a style reminiscent of a distant era, and on the steps leading up to the entrance he saw the person he was very familiar with. Rufus, an extremely proud man who considered the people around him unworthy of his time and attention, and the same man was the leader of the very Ark they happened to be on.
Oh, you managed to make it after all. Did you get lost in between the legs of some runaway whore on the way here?
Rufus pulls no punches.
I apologize for the delay, dear brother. I needed to assign our soldiers to their respective areas for tomorrow's festivities.
Rufus is also a dick.
Maybe it would have been better if you hadn't shown up at all. You mustn't tarnish our family's reputation before the royal family, any more than your whore of a mother already did.
I think it's too late for that now, dear brother.
Brother. I think I'm gonna kill you first, brother. Darius's head tilted toward the estate's gates, where a pompous black limousine pulled up at the very same moment.
Then, do your job and maintain your distance.
Yes, brother.
Straightening his clothes, Darius moved behind his brother. Rufus threw a disdainful look at him before turning to the limousine with a greasy smile. A shiver of disgust ran through Darius as he turned his attention away from him and toward their esteemed guests. A neatly dressed driver stepped out and opened the passenger door.
We finally arrived! Woo!
Child alert! To their surprise, a small, fierce boy jumped out of the vehicle. Happily, he stretched his arms, turning his back to them and facing the other passengers. A girl stepped out soon after, followed by a man and a woman. The royal family.
Tamara, get your brother.
Yes. Apologies, Mother.
A girl grabbed her little brother by the wrist and pulled him behind their parents.
Hey! Tammy, let go of me! Shh. Please, be quiet.
What an amusing display it was. This was the first time Darius had seen the royal family in person, and he was caught off by their behavior. See something like this from the esteemed, glorious royal family.
Welcome to our humble Ark, Your Highness.
I thank you for this heartfelt welcome, my dear cousin. Forgive me for this inconvenience.
The dignified woman gave her son a stern look, causing him to step forward with his head lowered. Crossing his arms behind his body, the boy cautiously glanced up from his shoes.
Sorry. Ira!
Not at all, not at all. It is a great honor to witness how energetic the Crown Prince is.
Are you unwell?
Please, don't worry about me, Your Highness. This is just a very persistent cough. One does not get younger, after all.
I see.
I forget, is he actually
then let
sick?
us go inside. We had a long and exhausting journey. It may be good for all of us to catch a moment's rest before tomorrow's endeavors.
How right you are, Your Highness. Follow me.
Darius stepped aside to make way for his brother and their illustrious guests. Keeping his head bowed, he noticed the young princess's curious gaze on him.
What about you? Don't you want to come with us?
She had stopped in front of Darius, her body slightly bent forward, trying to make eye contact with him. Surprised by her interest, he reciprocated her gaze with a gentle smile.
Please don't waste your time with someone so insignificant as me.
What do you mean by someone so insignificant? Aren't you also just a
Sweetheart, are you coming? The others
There
have
he
already
is.
gone inside. We shouldn't keep them waiting for much longer.
The halfway decent dad.
Yes, Dad!
Surprised, she looked up the stairs, interrupting herself. The broad smile that had graced her lips at the call of her father turned into a solemn expression.
As you wish, Father.
Looking back at Darius one last time, he said his goodbyes to the young princess with a cordial bow. You can tell a lot about the familial relationships with their respective parents based on based on hair color. It's probably an intentional design choice. When the large entrance doors closed, taking with it the noise of footsteps and voices, Darius could finally breathe again. That empty glare of his. That is good. With every tick of the clock, Nahum became more and more nervous. He was lying on the couch, shrouded in darkness, with his gaze fixed on the high ceiling of their loft. Much longer would Shiloh take? Did she think he was stupid? That she could fool him just like that? He knew exactly how many times she had snuck out at night. She had been sneaking out to meet him. The mere thought of what that man would do to her sent chills down his spine, making his whole body tremble.
That disgusting, slimy bastard.
Who are you calling a bastard,
Busted. Caught off guard, Nahum jumped to his feet. Leaning against the wall at the other end of the large loft stood Shiloh with her arms crossed before her chest.
Shh, please don't make so much noise, or you'll wake the others.
She gently slid her index finger over a control panel on the wall beside her, and the lounge area was bathed in a soft, warm light. It was bright enough for the two to make out each other's expressions. Despite the dim light, he could still tell that she was no longer dressed in her nightgown, but back in her uniform. It felt like a slap in the face.
So you are going to him after all.
Nahum.
Pushing herself off the wall, his sister sat down next to him on the couch. The way she was looking at him in pity. He must be looking really pathetic.
You don't know him as well as I do. He is a kind and gentle man.
Kind and gentle?
A soft smile on her rose-colored lips. How painfully sweet she had pronounced those words for that man. It was as though she drove a knife deeper into his heart.
Don't look at me like that, Nana. Please?
Don't call me that.
He wanted to object more loudly, but he couldn't. Not when she was looking at him so affectionately. He felt his sister's hand carefully move toward him and gently brush his cheek. But this tenderness, this warmth that enveloped him, did not last long. She withdrew her hand and got to her feet.
Please don't be angry with me.
What? You're really leaving?
I promised him.
So what? Just because he got us out of that shithole back then doesn't mean you have to sleep with him.
Nahum, please. He'll wake the others. I really have to leave now. Please go to bed and get some rest. After all, tomorrow will be a long and tiring day.
Yeah. The prologue really only makes the power dynamics even worse. Even if it's not too aggressively of an age gap, it's still a really concerning power dynamic between Darius and Shiloh.
But
good night, Nana. Sweet dreams.
That also gives us our trio with a really tight-knit dynamic together. Memory serves, Yona has feelings for Nahum. And Nahum has the tighter bond with Shiloh to an almost unhealthy degree, because those two were ride and die on their own until they met Yona and her dad. And it's just like that, with the closing of the apartment door, their discussion had come to an end. A burning rage began to build within him. Wished he could simply grab her by the wrist and drag her back. He wanted to lock her up so that she would never run into this guy again or be used by him any longer. Little bit too far. Then she might hate him for the rest of her life. No, he would rather die than have her hate him. This uneasy, oppressive sense of fear which had clung tightly to his heart dragged him deeper into an abyss, just wouldn't let go of him. So now we have our meeting. The city was illuminated by the beautiful warm light of its street lamps. Although it was late at night, there were still a few people strolling across the plaza.
Look how beautiful the night sky is today. Oh, and the stars.
Oh, yes. It surely must be a good omen for the festival. After all, it has been exactly 50 years since the current reigning family took over of this Ark.
You're right. Ever since then, our Ark has grown in power. We have made a real name for ourselves amongst the others.
But shouldn't we go home now? It's already late, don't you think?
Oh, yes, I'm so looking forward to tomorrow. Her Royal Highness herself will be giving a speech after all.
And here we are.
You feeling okay, Brett? Should have stayed back at the camp.
No, I'm fine.
Shrouded in the shadows of the night, the three strangers lurked in an underpass. One of the two women stood with her back leaning against the wall, while the other was crouching, drawing circles with her index finger on the ground, her thoughts elsewhere. The man stood opposite them, taking a deep drag on his cigarette.
Memories from back then?
No, that's not it. I grew up in the slums, not on the plateau. Well, before they kicked me out.
Please let me know if it gets too much, and I'll send you and Iran back to the others. I don't mind having the meeting on my own.
Thank you, boss.
Despite the fact that Esther had already made herself clear several times now, Mari, their leader, noticed her usually relaxed and cheerful face was contorted into a painful grimace. Oh, Esther, you don't have to act tough and hide your feelings from us. But who am I to tell you what to do? While she would have liked to say these words to her, this was probably a futile endeavor given their situation and the stubbornness of her companion.
That was your last cigarette, right, Iran?
He froze, his hand in his breast pocket. Clicking his tongue, he flicked the cigarette stub onto the floor and stamped it out underneath his foot.
The smoke burns my eyes, and is even more unbearable with these stupid contact lenses in.
What has to be done, has to be done. We can't afford to blow our cover and jeopardize the entire mission just because the contacts are uncomfortable.
I know. Although being a hybrid is pretty cool, it does have disadvantages.
There's something cool about being a hybrid?
Sure. For example, I could easily knock you out even though you're twice as big and heavy as I am. Wanna give it a try?
I believe her.
No thank you, I'll pass. Anyways, how much longer do we actually have to wait here? Shouldn't there be someone coming to pick us up by now? Or was this a trap and they're just waiting around the corner, eager to blow our brains out?
You must be talking about me.
The soft voice of a very young woman echoed from at the other end of the underpass. Automatically, Aaron's head went to his hip. Head went to his hip, hand went to his hip. Although he was stopped by Mari, who shook his head. Words are all over the place today. Automatically, Aaron's hand went to his hip. However, he was stopped by Mari, who shook her head before directing her attention at the woman.
I'm sorry. I don't quite know what you're talking about.
You must be Mari, the representative leader of the rebellion. Is that correct? Don't worry. I was sent to pick you up. Please accept this.
The young woman stepped forward, and Mari was finally able to take a closer look at her face.
What in...
A sudden chill ran down Mari's spine, making her feel uneasy, as if trying to warn her about something she just couldn't figure out. That woman's smile, which seemed to radiate tenderness, felt so empty, so cold. It seemed like Mari was the only one who felt worried. She could hear her friends sighing with relief behind her when they saw the woman extend her hand. I remember finding this dynamic really cool, too. Like, we've seen Shiloh from Nahum's perspective. We've seen Shiloh and Darius together. Everything seems fine. You see her from the perspective of a neutral third party, and something don't feel right. In her hand, she held a normal playing card, the Ace of Hearts.
I'm sorry to have kept you waiting. You may call me Shiloh. I will be your guide and take you to the location of the meeting. If you would please, follow me.
Without waiting for the three of them to react, the woman turned away and started walking. In a brief exchange of puzzled glances, Mari eventually shook her head, exhaling a sigh. They had no choice but to follow that woman. Trailing behind her, they walked across the plaza near the underpass and entered an opulent hotel. Ignoring the bellboy and the receptionist in the lobby, they climbed the stairs and headed straight for the door at the end of the wing. It was a modern, spacious room featuring a bed as well as a large seating area consisting of a wide couch and an armchair. There was a man sitting on the armchair, with legs crossed and chin cradled in his hand. He appeared to be in deep contemplation, entirely oblivious to their presence. It wasn't until the lone soldier, who was standing stiffly behind him, cleared his throat that he snapped out of his daze.
Oh, apologies. How very discourteous of me.
Hastily, he jumped to his feet and made his way toward Mari, grasped her hand and shook it.
Thank you so much for coming. You must be Mari, correct? I was the one who asked Adelante to send you. You may call me Darius.
Adelante? Do we know that name?
Yes. Delighted to make your acquaintance.
Have a seat, please.
All right. Somewhat taken by surprise, she let go of his hand and followed his gesture to sit down by the couch. Whilst Esther followed suit, Aaron remained standing beside her, right next to the sofa. She knew that look on his face very well, a skepticism.
I prefer standing.
Mari could see Darius whispering something to the woman who had brought them here, before turning away and taking his seat back on the armchair to the left. Shiloh, on the other hand, moved next to the soldier, who was staring past them all, almost like a mannequin.
Well, thank you once again for coming. I warmly welcome you to our humble Ark.
Thank you for the warm welcome. Before we begin, I would like to ask you 2 questions.
It does not seem like he's really putting on a performance in those words.
Why, of course.
How did you come to know the leader of the rebellion? And by her name at that.
She is the acquaintance of an acquaintance.
Is that so?
What is your second question?
Why would an honored member of the royal family seek out the services of the rebellion? Are we not the Ark's greatest enemy? I'm sorry if my questions are direct, but I don't quite understand your motivations yet.
Very fair.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It's good to know the character and the intentions of the person before making a deal with them. Let's put it this way. We are pursuing a similar goal. Unbiased equality and independence. I am tired of seeing people being trampled on just because they might be weaker or of a lesser descent. Of seeing people systematically sorted out according to their values and purposes. Doomed to die a meaningless death.
Mari could have sworn she saw fire blazing in his eyes. There were so many emotions trembling in his voice, so much pain, so much grief that she didn't even dare to ask. She averted her eyes away from him to her knees. A faint sigh fell from her lips. Hearing this again, I wonder if it's intentional. But he does kind of come across as, like, he'd make a good politician. Let's say that. Whether one was part of the Ark or the Rebellion, whether one was part of the Ark or the Rebellion, belonged to the royal family that was just a poor orphan, a deep-seated sense of misery was inevitable. Wasn't it? That feels like a political sentence he just spat out. Like, not really much actual substance to it, but filled with enough inflammatory language to get your heart moving.
We have already located sympathizers of the rebellion who would sacrifice themselves for the cause. All we need is the schedule and the resources you can provide. This way, we can ensure the mission's success.
I understand.
The man's gaze drifted off, and, as if lost in thought, he touched his chin. A soft smile formed on his lips, as if he was recalling a beautiful yet distant memory.
In that case, there should be nothing standing in our way of that mission. And don't worry about the funds. I'll provide you with everything you need. What exactly did you have in mind?
Mari's eyes wandered to Arod, who nodded. He pulled a folded piece of paper out of his jacket pocket, revealing a huge map of the Ark, which he promptly spread out on the coffee table in front of them. A total of 8 red dots were marked on it.
We have 7 sympathizers on the plateau, and 1 located in the slums. We thought we could...
10 minutes later.
Sounds good to me. Let's do it that way. Are there any other questions?
No, not really. Right?
She looked at her comrades, who merely shook their heads.
Good. In that case, we should call it a day. It's already quite late. To thank you for your cooperation, I had the hotel staff prepare 3 rooms for you. You can discuss everything we've talked about with the rest of your comrades tomorrow morning and prepare accordingly.
Mari slowly rose from her seat and could practically feel the fatigue in her heavy legs. His offer made sense, and to be frank, she was too exhausted of all this fighting to refuse.
Then I wish you a good and restful night. Good Anders here.
Anders? He nodded to the mannequin-like soldier behind him.
We'll lead you to your rooms.
Yes, Commander.
Very good, sirs.
If you all kindly follow me.
Anders is a very butler name. The soldier walked firmly past them to the door, which he held open for Mari and her companions.
Good night, mister.
Come now, brat.
Yes, I'm coming.
Bit of unintentional irony there, considering what happens a little bit later from now. I'm an adult, I swear. As though something held her back, Mari glanced back into the room one last time. The man was still sitting there in his chair, his warm smile unchanged, waving goodbye to them. And the strange woman who sent a shiver down Mari's spine every time she looked at her was right behind them. Uh-huh. She could have sworn she saw out of the corner of her eye the man's smile turn into a grim expression the second before the door closed, like a mask was ripped from his skin. I love the way Mari sees those two. I've said it many times, but I love the way that she sees those two. It really feels like she's seeing them for who they actually are. I mean, this scene right here, not saying like there should be, but this is just like, I would personally love to see the way the scene is written with Mari seeing these two sitting positioned the way they are, with their expressions the way she sees them. Just think of how chilling a CG that would make, just to see them in that moment. That's just my personal opinion. That'd make a really chilling CG, just to see the two of them looking like that. Like a mask was ripped from his skin. And the sudden door slam. Oh, if she had known what would happen the following day, would Mari have agreed to this man's request with a clear conscience? As the door to the room closed, Darius' shoulders dropped and his facial muscles relaxed. Darius was exhausted. All the years of torment which he had to endure, which his people had to endure each and every day. Everything would finally come to an end tomorrow. It would all be over. Finally, the pillars of this goddamn monarchy would be brought down. Closing his eyes, he slumped back, letting his head drop into his neck. The sweet voice he had longed for all this time called out to him. A picture of a young woman who was the spitting image of him flashed before him. How much he missed that warmth, that loving hand that stroked his hair soothingly during nightmares, a gentle voice that had lulled him into a sense of peace. His mother. That's this pure love. A smile as warm as the sun and eyes as green as the meadow. All this belonged only to him, only... Huh? The image in front of him began to fade. No, it transformed.
Darius.
As if ripped from a beautiful, everlasting dream, he opened his eyes. The image of that woman, his mother, was gone. In its place, he now saw Shiloh. Bending her head over his, she peered down at him, visibly concerned.
Everything all right?
Her hand wandered to his forehead, of which she carefully brushed his falling strands of hair.
You are so beautiful. You know that?
What?
He watched his partner's face suddenly turn a deep shade of red at his statement. It amused him time and time again to tease such reactions out of her. It made him greedy for more.
You can't just say stuff like that out of the blue.
Oh, really? Why not?
Darius saw her mouth open as she searched for the right words, but no sound came out. Taking advantage of Shiloh's moment of helplessness, he grabbed her wrist, pulling her onto his lap, and, clutching her waist with one hand, he used his other hand to touch her face.
Darius.
I would like to pick up from where we unfortunately had to leave off this afternoon.
He gently slid his hand up to her thigh, his eyes studying her reaction with great care. The way she bit her lower lip, how her eyes kept darting away and returning to him, particularly the subtle twitches of her thighs with every touch. He knew she wanted it. Still, he had to hear it. Her face contracted almost painfully as he released his hand from her. A sense of satisfaction and arousal ran through his body. A faint whimper tore from her lips, and she looked down at him with desperate eyes.
Stop grinning so foolishly.
Can't help it when you stare at me, begging like that. You know how that turns me on.
Resting her hand on his broad shoulders, she leaned forward to place her lips firmly on his. Breaking a kiss, she put her forehead on his to stare at him. Caught a glimmer of desperate lust in her eyes.
Don't stop. I want you. I need you. Darius, please.
Although he would have loved to seat her in this position for a little longer, he had finally reached his limit. Every fiber of his body longed for her. Her touches, her kisses, her moans, for Shiloh drenched in passion and lust when he thrust into her. Well, without giving her a chance to prepare herself, he leaned forward and pulled her tightly across against him in an intimate, fierce kiss. His tongue greedily licked her soft lips, which welcomed him eagerly. Vigorously his hand grabbed her thighs before lifting her up with him. He carried her to the bed and gently put her down before breaking the kiss of the ripping his vest and shirt off his body.
I can't hold back any longer.
He pushed her legs apart. What he needed to feel her body to taste it. Craving it, he began to shower her body with kisses ever as his hand wandered to her uniform to unbutton it. Shiloh stopped him.
Darius.
Yes, my love.
Torn out of some kind of trance, he gazed up at her. The warm brown eyes facing him suddenly seemed so sad and melancholic. Grasped her hand as she was reaching for him.
Do you love me?
Surprised by the sudden seriousness of her question, he faltered for a moment. What should he do? Should he be honest or lie to her? Which choice would her poor heart be able to accept?
Of course I love you.
He pulled her hand toward him and kissed it affectionately as if to emphasize the importance of his words. In her voice, he was in fact lying. You are my greatest tool, after all. Shiloh's gentle breathing filled the moonlit room. Despite the fact that it was past midnight and the two had already ended their play a while ago, Darius was unable to fall asleep. His head raced with all kinds of thoughts, yet simultaneously it was so empty. His gaze lingered on the breathtaking bare woman. She had clung to his hand like a lifeline as she was sleeping beside him. Did she already suspect that she, just like the rebels, was just another pawn for him? Would she have guessed that he would sacrifice her without batting an eye if it meant he could achieve his goal? Delicately, he brushed her hair out of her face before studying it intently. No, presumably not. She's far too devoted to him to even question his actions. Oh, my poor sweet Shiloh. Bending forward, he gently placed a kiss on the clueless woman's forehead.
Sleep well, my sweet love.
Yep, he's got a lot going on, and unsurprisingly... Oh. Shocked, Yona's mouth dropped open a fraction. In front of her on the counter was a bowl filled with flour, sugar, and now an egg with its cracked shell. I must not be fully awake yet. Shaking her head, she scooped the egg out of the bowl and into the bin. Instead of continuing her waffle making, she found her attention drifting out the window. Two birds with soft, bright feathers had settled on the windowsill of her lofty apartment. Cheerfully they exchanged sweet melodies as they snuggled up to one another, bathing in the early morning sun. So at ease and free, it wasn't long before a third blackbird joined them. Though they welcomed him into their circle, chirping at him, the new bird remained silent. However, right as it was about to chirp, the two other birds flew off. The lonely dark bird remained. For quite some time his eyes were fixed on his departing companions before he slowly turned to her, to Yona. She recognized a glimmer of sorrow in his deep, dark eyes. Poor bird turns to look at Yona. You feel me, girl? I feel you, bird.
Hey, Yona. Huh? Can you hear me?
Huh?
She flinched and turned toward the voice. In front of her stood a yawning Nahum, wearing a simple shirt and shorts, sleepily ruffling his hair.
Oh, good morning.
Caught off guard, she cleared her throat and could sense her cheeks getting warmer. Leaning back against the counter with his arms crossed and a sardonic grin on his lips, it seemed he had come to a groundbreaking realization.
What were you thinking about to get so absent-minded, hmm?
Nothing. But since you're here and want to get on my nerves, you might as well set the table.
Turning away from him, she turned back to the waffle batter, to which she added some milk and butter as the final ingredients. They remained silent for a while, Nahum carefully placed the plates on the dining table while Yona continued to prepare breakfast. After taking a pan and the waffle iron out of the cupboard, she turned on the stove. Though she usually welcomed the silence, there was one topic that she wouldn't let go.
You had another fight with Shiloh last night, didn't you?
Huh? What are you talking about?
You think we can't hear you, but we can.
I overheard. It was pretty hard not to, especially with the way you were yelling.
Right.
So? What do you care about it?
I'm interested because I'm the unit leader. Your quarrels risk not only your lives, but those of your team.
As she scooped up the batter with a ladle and put it into the hot waffle iron, she noticed he moved to lean beside her. He put his back against the counter and looked at the floor. After closing the waffle iron, she waited for Nahum to speak, adding bacon to the pan. Bacon, bacon, waffles.
You know she's being taken advantage of by that guy. Why aren't you saying anything? Why am I the only one?
Her eyes narrowed, and she momentarily ignored his question. Her full concentration on the frying bacon. She knew where he was coming from. Seeing Shiloh with this man over and over again sent a sharp pain through her chest, and yet...
Are you sure she's the one being taken advantage of?
Not looking up, she placed the crispy bacon strips on a sheet to drain. Despite doing everything in her power to avoid his gaze, she knew exactly how bewildered he must look.
Are you...
For real? Yes.
For real? Without further explanation, she turned away from the counter and placed the tower of waffles and bacon on the table. This idiot was blinded by his love for his sister. This idolization made him unaware of this darkness that had taken root in her heart. It was started with the murder of Yona's father. Not then, sometime much earlier. Oh, Nahum, you fool. She could also relate to his pain, his despair, disbelief. At first, she didn't want to believe it herself, and yet...
I think that
I think that she's home.
Oh, morning.
Oh no, hi Lydia.
Oh, the smell.
Before she could finish her sentence, their conversation was cut short by yawning Lydia rubbing her eyes. Perhaps this was for the better.
Ah, good morning, Lydia. Good that you're awake. Breakfast is ready.
I don't remember if that line was in the original. But if it was, we now know the context of it, which is also intriguing. Similar to Nahum a few minutes earlier, Lydia shuffled toward them, only in her skimpy night clothes. It took her a bit for her drowsy expression to become a confused one.
Did I interrupt you guys?
No, you didn't.
Yona could swear she felt Nahum's stare on her before he turned his gaze toward Lydia.
Did you sleep well?
Yeah, like a rock.
The spirited Lydia's cheeks turned a soft pink as soon as she noticed Nahum looking down at her with a cheeky smile. Nervously, she fiddled with a strand of her hair which had fallen into her face. Having feelings for this guy, she isn't doing her heart any favors. Yeah, right, Yona, you're one to talk.
Sit down. You might as well chat while you eat.
Yes, ma'am.
So Lydia,
Man, this looks so good, Yoni. You've outdone yourself once again.
So we're filling out the relationship dynamic chart here. Lydia's got the schoolgirl crush. Yona's got the ride or die bond. Feelings for Nahum. Nahum's got the she is my world. I will protect her, and I'm also probably unhealthily in love with her. Dynamic for his sister, and Shiloh. Undecided. It's unclear. It's shockingly unclear. I don't know why that realization is just hitting me, but it is shockingly unclear how Shiloh actually feels about her teammates, her brother, and hell, even her relationship with Darius. Yona could practically see her companion's mouth watering. Seeing Lydia so carefree, she couldn't help but smile a little. Before indulging in the buffet herself, she took another plate from the cupboard and filled it with a variety of waffles, bacon, and some grapes to the table, which she then put covered in the fridge.
Is that for Zeke?
Yes, I imagine he was studying late into the night again.
But do you think he will really take the exam to become a researcher?
I've heard that the head of the research department he wants to join is supposed to be very strict. What was her name again?
Yael, and she needs to be strict. After all, she heads the department in charge of researching the Chimeras. The future of all mankind depends on them.
What if he gets accepted? Will he have to leave our unit? Oh, and where is Shy, by the way? Did you spend the night with the commander again?
Lydia, be quiet and eat.
Oh, right. Sorry, Yoni.
We don't talk about it. Enjoying the moment of peace to the fullest, she ate a slice of the waffle on her plate. Just as she was about to take another, however, she paused at the sight of Nahum. His plate was untouched and his eyes were glued to his phone. Oh, we're dealing with these two now. A sudden chill tore Aaron from his sleep. Daylight blanketed the room in a bright light and dazzled his tired eyes. His whole body felt heavy and his muscles ached with every move. What happened? Adapting to the morning light, he carefully let his gaze wander around the room. It was a modern and luxurious hotel suite which Darius had provided last night. His gaze lingered on several empty wine bottles scattered across the floor next to his bed. Had he been drinking? But why would he drink so much, especially out of his train? For thought faltered at as the sandy yellow fabric of a beanie underneath the sideboard near the bottles caught his attention. It was her beanie. Memories of last night hit him like a lightning strike. Masionga. The knock on his bedroom door, a nervous Esther who said she couldn't sleep. How he'd let her into his room. They had chatted, drunk 1, what, 2, what, 3, what, 4, what, bottles of wine, one after the other. Talked about the upcoming events, about the future. Her red eyes, which sparkled as beautifully as a ruby under the moon's graceful light. Naturally red eyes. She was wearing contacts earlier to blend in. And then it happened. A moment of utter carelessness.
What? What have I done?
Unconsciously, his hand wandered to his lips, stroking them as if he was trying to drag a memory out of the depths of his mind. It started with a kiss. How did it end up like this? Which had taken them both by surprise at the beginning. However, that kiss turned into something more. Enticed by the dangerous mixture of alcohol and desire, Aaron and Esther had helplessly stripped off each other's clothes in a dance of dominance. As if the alcohol had breached the dam of their pent-up feelings, they had thrown themselves at each other, and he had sworn to himself to never let anything like that happen, that he would never let anyone get near him or his heart again. Not after the incident in which he had lost his wife and their unborn child 8 years ago. It was his fault. He should have been the one who went on the expedition in their stead. One to lose his life at the brutal hands of the Ark. All that had remained of his wife and their child was a sea of blood the day they found them. And yet here he was, sitting naked on this bed, like the pathetic deadbeat he was. Oh.
I love you. I love you, Aaron.
I could splice something that would be really... that would kill the mood. As though his conscience was mocking him, taking pleasure in his suffering. That memory fragment from last night repeated in his mind over and over again.
Enough!
Those words meant nothing. Esther must have blurted those words out in the heat of the moment, blinded by alcohol and pleasure. No one would want to love someone so cowardly and miserable as him. Never. He had slept with Esther, a woman 13 years his junior, his comrade. As painful as it was for him, he had to accept this reality. He could curse himself as much and as long as he pleased, but what happened cannot be undone. And how should he interact with her now? This mishap threatened their whole mission. Mishap. Yes, that's what it was. A single slip-up, a feeling, a desire that they had pursued in the heat of the moment. She didn't love him. And he didn't love her. These kinds of feelings had died with her 8 years ago. Still feeling the after effects of the alcohol deep in his bones, he bent down to pick up his clothes, which were strewn across the room. He had to banish them, these feelings, these longings, these thoughts from his mind, as if they had never existed. This was the best thing for them both. He should catch up to the others. After all, there was something happening soon that was more important than uselessly worrying over his poor decisions and the uncertainty of his own feelings. One last time, he let his gaze wander across the room before closing the door behind him and stepping out into the hotel corridor. They must be waiting in the lobby for him, if they hadn't already left without him, that is. Soon after him, the strange girl from last night stepped out of one of the other rooms at the end of the corridor. If he remembered correctly, it was the one the meeting was held in. Her expression seemed blank, her eyes lifeless, like she was a mere puppet tied to strings controlled by an unknown force. Without paying him any attention whatsoever, she walked past him, almost as if he was invisible, as if he didn't exist. What a weird girl. I agree. Me too. Again, I love that. The more I think about it...
Tammy.
Oh no!
You're much too slow. You'll never catch up with me.
Child alert!
Ira, stop running. God, you. Okay, that's enough running away. Understood?
German suplex the Crown Prince. There's a fan art idea. Her tight grip on his wrist finally forced young Ira to a halt. Although he tried to free himself from her as best he could, her grasp and serious, piercing gaze became increasingly stronger with each pull. Grumpy, he let his older sister drag him along the finely carpeted corridor, though with great difficulty. Tamara was constantly buzzing about him, never giving him a moment's peace. It was as if he was made of porcelain. The slightest fall would shatter him into countless pieces. Yet all he wanted was to be treated like other children his age, to have fun and play outside just like them. He wanted...
See? That's what you get for pushing your body too hard.
Oh, shut up, Tammy.
He felt the strong pulsation of his heart, making his entire ribcage contract in pain, which made it harder for him to breathe. How much he detested this frail body. Was the reason why he was treated so delicately. Surely his sister must have had a much better childhood than him, playing with others her age and not being under constant surveillance day in and day out.
How much longer will they take? I don't want to be babied by you anymore.
I have no choice but to baby you, as you're behaving like a mere child. Like it or not, as the Crown Prince, you should behave responsibly and more mature.
As the Crown Prince, you should behave responsibly and more maturely.
Squidward face.
I am still a child, you big dumb idiot!
His outburst shocked Tamara, causing her to loosen her grip on him. Ira broke free from his sister's grasp and ran as fast as his little legs could carry him.
Wait! Don't run off! Ira, come back here right this instant!
You little shit! Tried to call after him to no avail, as her voice soon faded into the distance. Joy and excitement swept through his body, and a mischievous grin appeared on his face. Serves her right. Unfortunately, this excitement and the renewed energy didn't last long. He became sluggish and found it more difficult to continue running, eventually forcing him to come to a halt, completely out of breath. Oh man.
Ira, where are you?
Oh no, she got up to me already? Quick, I have to hide! No time to think, the little boy looked about in a panic before rushing into a room to his right. It's a simple yet very modern reception room, possibly used to accommodate guests of great importance. But where to hide? His gaze fixed on the closet in the far corner of the room. It seemed more than big enough for a boy of his size. It was perfect. His short legs carried him to the closet as fast as they could. To his surprise, it was completely empty. Was it just there as a decoration? But the room's empty. He didn't have much time to think about that. He heard muffled footsteps coming from the corridor. Without hesitation, he crawled inside the closet and closed its doors. His curiosity got the better of him, and he left the door open just a tiny bit.
So, what message do you bring from Her Majesty? Make it quick, you're wasting my precious time.
Your life is forfeit, Rufus. Instead of Tamara, it was Rufus. And he wasn't alone. Though Ira wasn't able to make out who was with him.
Huh? Did you say anything?
Man turned to his companion, but froze and suddenly threw his arms up.
Hey! Have you lost your mind?
Ira couldn't see what was happening, and yet he could feel a suffocating aura that made even his blood run cold.
Wait!
I'm in danger. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. (2 p.m.)
Yoni, have you seen my button?
You have to be a bit more specific. You've got thousands of those.
The blue one? With the pink flower on it.
You have 200 of those.
It's in the bathroom cabinet. Second drawer from the top, behind Shiloh's hairbrush.
Impressive, ma'am.
I love you, Yoni. You're the absolute best.
Yeah.
Without the unit realizing it, time had passed quickly. In less than an hour, they had to report for duty at the plaza for their assignment. Yet Nahum kept catching himself glancing at his cell phone. No new messages. Where is she? Why isn't she answering me? His mind raced, conjuring up all kinds of scenarios and reasons as to why his sister hadn't replied to his messages. And none of them were good ones. She could have been hit by a car on her way back, run into the arms of a murderer. That bastard could have done something to her. Earth to Nahum, if that disgusting piece of shit even laid a single finger on her, that he...
Hey, Nahum.
Earth to Nahum.
Huh? What's the matter, Lydia?
I could ask you the same thing. Is everything okay? You looked like you were about to chop someone's head off.
Really? Oh, it's just... the button on your breast pocket is really cool.
Good one.
Button on my chest.
You're staring at my chest? Her look of confusion turned to shock. Her face turned bright red. She backed away from a few steps, covering her chest with her arms.
Lydia, will you be so kind and wake up Ezekiel?
Yes.
As though Yona, who appeared behind her, had been some kind of salvation, Lydia turned her back on Nahum and hurried frantically in the direction of Zeke's room. Alright, get up, Big Zeke. Lydia's about to find out why Zeke is called Big Zeke. Editor's note, he is not called Big Zeke, I only call him that. Puzzled, poor Nahum looked after her before turning to his childhood friend. Instead of enlightening him, she simply shook her head, arms crossed in front of her.
Huh? What did I do wrong?
Oh, Nahum. You still have a lot to learn when it comes to the heart of a woman.
Do you want me to apologize?
Would you know what to apologize for?
Nope. What should he apologize for? There was nothing after all. He hadn't done anything wrong. If it helped to soothe Lydia. If you don't know what you're apologizing for, then your apology isn't going to carry much weight. In Nahum's eyes, she had always been very difficult to handle, turning from loud to one minute, to quiet and shy the next. It wasn't cute, but rather annoying. Not a Sundari fan.
Lydia, get out!
Poor Lydia, her face as white as a ghost, came staggering out of Zeke's room, the door slamming shut behind her. Yep. That's Zeke. Shuffling past the two of them and into her own room, she seemed to be processing some kind of shock.
I'll go and check on her.
You sweet summer child, Lydia.
Yeah, sure.
At last the silence had returned, giving Nahum a chance to breathe again. He missed the time when it was just him and Shiloh and no one else. The time when they solely relied on each other. He'd rather have stayed in that shithole outside the Arks than let his sister get involved with this guy in particular. All these people with all their differences, their manners and opinions overwhelmed him, and he hated it. The only thing he needed in his life was Shiloh. Only her. Only her. As long as he had her by his side, all of humanity could die right this moment for all he cared. Once again, his eyes strayed to his cell phone. And judging by that prologue segment, Shiloh was the one who carried them. Like, she was the aggressive one. He just kind of clung to her. She was the power of the gang. He just kind of clung to her. So he's had a codependent, unhealthy codependent relationship with her for entirely too long now. No new messages. Should he call her? If he did, he would just go straight to voicemail like all the others. His thumb hovered over the green call button of her phone contact, on the verge of pressing, but stopping himself. It was like his heart had evoked his dearest wish. His sister stepped through the front door and into the entryway of the loft. Upon seeing her, the fear that had been weighing him down so heavily had dissipated.
There you are! Do you know how worried I was? Why didn't you?
Without hesitating, he approached her, eager to take her in his arms out of sheer relief, but he froze at the sight of her face.
Are you alright? You look so...
I'm fine, Nahum. I'm just a bit tired. That's all.
Despite the fact that his sister forced a smile onto her lips, something felt wrong. It seemed so distant and not really present, like she was trying to hide something from him. A nauseating chill came over him.
And what about your phone? Why haven't you replied to any of my messages?
My cell phone? Oh, that's right. The battery died and I forgot to charge it. Sorry about that.
If you say so.
I only stopped by to take a shower and put on a fresh uniform.
In an attempt to end the conversation, she turned away and was heading toward her room when something caught Nahum's eye. Her wrist.
Ow! Hey!
What is this, Shiloh?
Before she was able to get to her room, he had grabbed her by her upper arms and pulled her back, causing her to let out a pained hiss.
Stop, please. Let me go.
She pleaded with him to let her go, but to no avail. He had already seen it. Resolute, he pulled up the sleeves of her uniform, revealing forearms and wrists littered with bleeding scratch marks. They were small, the sheer number sent a shiver down Nahum's spine. Seeing her so violated made his blood boil. His heartbeat grew stronger.
This hurts.
What is this? Did he do this to you?
No, please stop.
He shouldn't have let her go last night. He was too gullible. This was his fault.
No.
Freeing one of her hands from his grip, she caressed his cheek gently. A mere touch from her was enough to clear his mind. His heartbeat returned to its regular pulse and he closed his eyes.
Calm down, please. I don't want to see you like this. It scares me.
Her hand traveled from his cheek to his forehead, where she carefully brushed away the strands of his hair. He scared her? No, that's the last thing he wanted.
Don't look at me like that. I'm fine, and you know me. I can take care of myself.
Defeated, his other hand let go now, and his gaze dropped away from her to the ground. How was he supposed to resist? She had him completely wrapped around her finger.
Huh?
Catching him off guard, Shala moved toward him and stood on her tiptoes. Using his surprise to her advantage, she missed a gentle kiss on his cheek.
Are you still angry with me?
What? No, of course not. Why would I be angry at you? I could never do that.
Oh, Nahum. I'm going to get ready now. Let's do our best today, shall we?
Yes.
He watched as his sister turned away from him, toward her bedroom door. She stopped herself before opening it. The last time, she turned to him and smiled gently, full of sincerity.
I love you.
I love you too.
Yeah, she knows. I don't know why I didn't give that much thought. that's still concerning, knowing that that exists. Whether it's from Darius or from her, that's still very concerning for her state of being, that is something that is happening to her. It's very concerning. Just as they had discussed the day before, the three rebels had arrived at the meeting point for the soldiers assigned to the slums. Letting into the crowd, they joined the waiting line.
With these IDs, you should be able to get onto the site. They're easy to confuse with the originals, even if they're fake. From there, just act like you belong. Dear Shiloh here will accompany you. Just stick to her and you should have no problems getting into the slums.
A firm push against Mari's arm snapped her out of her train of thought. It was Aaron, nodding from her to the man in the uniform in front of them. The guard had a clipboard under one arm and his hand out expectantly.
Pardon me. Here you go.
With sweaty hands, Mari pulled the fake ID cards out of the breast pocket of the unfamiliar uniform and handed them to the soldier.
Okay, you're on the list, but there's supposed to be 4 of you. A certain, Shiloh is still missing.
She probably overslept. Wouldn't be the first time.
Is that so, huh? Well, then your group must get to Hangar 4. You'll be assigned to your mechs there.
Returning their IDs, he stepped aside and let them pass through the gate onto the expansive military grounds.
Thank you.
No problem, boss. I'm glad he bought that.
This place is huge.
Small groups of military units were scattered around the site. They all seemed to be very young and still quite green. They stood around shuffling their feet uncertainly, twitchy with giddy excitement like this was their first time piloting a mech. A nauseating feeling pierced her stomach and didn't go away even upon arriving at their respective hangars.
Seems like we're the only ones assigned to this one. Let's take a break until that girl gets here. Oh man, this headache. Guess I had 1 or 2 drinks too many last night.
You've been drinking?
Hey, easy, boss. You know me. I'm an excellent driver and gunner, even when drunk. I'd even say I'm better drunk than sober.
That does not fill me with confidence, man.
You!
Dumbfounded, she couldn't help but heave a sigh and shake her head. Still, she had to admit that he wasn't entirely wrong. The first few years after the tragedy where his wife and unborn child had died, there hadn't been a day in which he hadn't resorted to drinking. Yet he remained one of the most talented warriors their colony had to offer. Unbelievable, this guy. She looked up. The sky was clear and blue with only a few clouds. She noticed the clouds passed by much faster on the Arks than outside on land. Kind of eerie. Esther's audible groan brought her back down from the clouds above and onto the solid ground of reality. Her gaze to the ground, she rocked up and down. It wasn't abnormal to see her so spaced out. Even so, Mari could tell that something was bothering her more than usual.
Are you feeling all right, Esther?
What? Yeah.
That's a lie.
Yes, I'm still tired.
I drank a few too many too. That's also a lie.
You know.
Rapid footsteps echoed in their direction, interrupting Mari. The blonde woman from the day before, the one who would lead them to the slums, came running. The one who made Mari feel so incredibly uncomfortable.
Sorry to keep you waiting. I got held up.
No worries. We didn't wait long.
With a smile, the girl nodded toward the hangar gate, which automatically opened at the touch of a remote control in her hand.
Normally, we would have to wait for someone with authority to open the gates for us, since most of the people here have only just started their military training or are pretty low in rank. But luckily, I'm someone with plenty of authority.
Quite so, in fact. The interior of a modern hangar with 4 huge mechs came into view. Their colony was nothing compared to what they had found in front of them. This was much more advanced, safer.
Wow.
These are only training models. They are usually only needed to instruct rookies and are not nearly as advanced as the models we use for fighting chimeras outside the Arks.
What?
insane. Almost
frightening.
If these were only basic models, she didn't want to know what kind of models fully trained soldiers were currently handling. She recalled Gabriel explaining to her that the Arks were constantly upgrading their military equipment with the latest technology, eager to create the greatest murder machine mankind has seen. Yeah, that sounds familiar. Rebellion, however, didn't have this kind of luxury. Totally unheard of, a company just dumping billions of dollars into bettering their military instead of investing it into infrastructure and support for the people living in their country. That could never happen in reality. /S. Sarcasm. All they could do was tinker with destroyed models and other resources that were able to get their hands on while fighting the military.
Pick a mech. They're practically all the same.
Ooh, I picked this one.
Good choice. It's like some... Of all the random things to randomly pop up in my head, it's a soundbite of like Mario or something from one of those rare edutainment Mario games. Random soundbite of Mario. Like, I like your choice. I don't know why. My brain does strange things sometimes. Don't mind me. Like an excited child, Esther hurried to the mech on her right, causing Aaron to shake his head.
What a brat.
Let her cook. She could throttle me to death in 2.5 seconds. Mari chose the mech in the left-hand corner of the huge wall. Similar to her own mech back home, the hatch to the inside of the mech opened by pressing a hidden button underneath a metal plate. It opened with a hiss and she slipped inside. To her surprise, the control panel was a simple, standard configuration. She recognized it and was able to familiarize herself with the controls easily. With a single press of a button, the engine produced a gentle, soothing vibration when she felt at her back through the soft, padded leather seat.
Can you guys hear me?
Check.
Yep. Good. Before we set off, please switch to frequency 6. At least until we arrive. Okay. How do I do that? And, what do I need it for? There is a rotary button in the center of the control panel. You have to press it once to activate it, and then turn it until you see the number 6 on the display. It's generally used to transmit the news and messages regarding the festival. It also broadcasts the live speech, which is something I don't think you want to miss. We'll get our signal that way.
Oh, really?
Following her instructions, Mari pressed the control and immediately showed an energetic female voice.
Oh, and before I forget, can you see the 3 switches lined up vertically next to the rotary button you just pressed? Please do me a favor.
Press the bottom switch.
Let's get going. There isn't much time left. Follow me.
They followed the young woman out of the hangar and toward the plateau's center. Some of the groups that Mari had seen on that site before had already left. They were one of the last to leave. It wasn't long before they arrived at their destination. Even Mari, someone who had never lived in an Ark, recognized it. A huge shadow that cast over the floor that made her look up. Only a few meters separated them from what seemed to be a gigantic round metal structure rising straight up into the air. The core, the thing that connected the plateau, the slums, and the labor platform.
Wow. And it takes us down just like that?
Aren't you originally from an Ark?
Yes, but from the slums. You don't really come into contact with the core, and...
Whoa! What? The core is like a multi-story elevator which transports mechs and vehicles back and forth between the plateau and the slums. There is a second smaller elevator, but it's exclusively for high-ranking military operatives. We should be arriving in the slums in about 10 minutes. If you take a look at the map, you'll be able to see a green dot flashing in the West Slum area. That's your destination.
Handy.
Say, Shiloh, right? I've been wondering about something for a while now.
What's up?
What is your reason for following Darius? What is your goal in all this?
Oh, it's because I love him and I want his dreams to become a reality.
A concerning sentence there.
Oh, do you?
With a rattle, the elevator came to a halt and opened its massive gates. Almost immediately, Mari felt that her stomach twist with uncertainty. In contrast to the plateau, whose area around the core was vast and full of trees, they now step straight into a tunnel. Almost like we're not supposed to see what's beyond these walls. Having no time to familiarize themselves with their new environment, their guide continued on.
Ah! Wait for us! The right branch will take you directly to the slums, and from there it should only take you a few minutes to reach your destination.
Following her instructions, they headed for the intersection. However, just as Mari and her companions are about to turn right, on the edge of their windshield, she spotted Shadow's mech separating from them and entering the left branch.
What?
What is she doing?
You two go on ahead. I will follow her.
No, boss, wait!
Leave her be. She knows what she's doing, Esther. Come on now. We have a mission to carry out.
Turning away from her comrades, Mari backed out of the right tunnel and steered toward the left, following that strange woman. Oh, how she cursed her gut feeling. But could she have guessed what fate awaited her just mere moments away? The impact it would not only have on her, but on the future of all mankind. Lydia still couldn't quite get over her shock from earlier. Every time she tried thinking of something else, the images of Zeke, stripped bare, flashed through her mind. That's why they call him Big Zeke. How is she supposed to know he slept completely naked? Or the right mind does that? Kittens, just think of kittens, Lydia. She could feel the heat rushing to her face again. Squeezing her eyelids firmly shut, she shook her head.
Are you still thinking about it?
Yoni! Shh! You're not making it any better.
Was it really that bad? I can't imagine that he's that ill-equipped.
Be quiet! Please! What if they hear us?
In panic, her gaze shifted in all directions, praying that no one, especially not the boys, had overheard their conversation. Fortunately for her, they were nowhere to be seen. The group had split into two to get a better overview of the plaza. They should finally have given poor Lydia a moment to breathe a sigh of relief. Yet, carefully, Lydia's soft hands moved to her flushed cheeks to cool them. She had relaxed since there were more important matters at hand right now. Yes, that's right. Calm down, Lydia. They're honestly worth things than seeing your comrades naked. They're worth things to think about. They're worth things at hand than Big Zeke's big, throbbing...
I just can't do it.
With a heavy groan, she buried her face in her hands. No matter how hard she tried, the images held tightly in their grasp. It had at least been home.
What can you not do?
Caught by surprise, her whole body flinched and her heart plummeted. Her wide-eyed gaze wandered from their hands to the direction her voice had come from. Pushing her away through the crowd, the boys walked up to her and Yona.
Didn't you want to scout the area? Doesn't really seem like you did that to me.
Yona looked skeptically at the ice cream cones the two boys were carrying. While Zeke was holding one, Nahum was holding two in his hand.
We did, but in the process, we also found an ice cream van. Here, Yona.
Nahum handed Yona one of the cones while he took a lick from the other. Hers was mint chocolate chip, while his was plain dark chocolate. Huh? Why did her heart ache so suddenly, as though someone or something was digging its claws deep into it, slowly tearing it apart? It hurt like hell.
Me here.
Zeke held out his ice cream cone, obscuring her view. It was faintly pink and smelled like strawberry. Her favorite. Thoughtful dude! The Big Zeke. The Big and Big Zeke. Stands for the big heart that he's got. What a sweetheart.
What about you?
I don't like ice cream.
Oh, thank you, Zeke.
I'm rooting for them. Hesitantly, she licked her ice cream, nervously eyeing Zeke. But once the wonderful sweet aroma of strawberries tickled her taste buds, she couldn't help herself. It means all the thoughts that had occupied her, good and bad, vanished. It's so good.
Listen, Lydia, about earlier.
Sis, is that you?
Uh-oh. There's this asshole. A boyish voice emerged from the crowd of eager bystanders, robbing Zeke of the opportunity to finish his sentence. That voice, Lydia knew it very well.
Felix?
Her eyes locked on a part of pair of emerald green eyes, twins to her own. The eyes of her younger brother was walking toward the unit straight to her, but...
What are you doing here?
I guess what the majority of people are here for, to watch the speech. And you texted me that you would be here today, so...
Aw, someone must have really missed me, huh?
Placing her free arm around her brother's shoulders, Lydia pulled him closer to her.
Hey, let go of me, you dumb bimbo! Who even wants to see you anyway, huh?
Using all his strength, he tried to free himself from his sister's clutches. It was near impossible, given that she was a trained soldier and he was only a 13-year-old boy. Oh, I remember how this plays out. But he felt his resistance abruptly drop, causing her to look at him in confusion. Oh, I love... This is the realization that Nahum doesn't respond to any of the girls pining. Not because he's a dense anime boy, but because he is socially maladjusted and came from a horribly stressful and would we fair to call it traumatic? I'd say, yeah, it'd be fair to call it traumatic upbringing, which led to him forming very unhealthy relationships. To survive. His gaze, somewhat grumpy, was fixated on the man who positioned himself in front of them during their banter. It was Nahum. His face was contorted into an unusually stern expression with his hands buried in the pockets of his uniform. He must have finished his ice cream already.
What do you want?
Is this how you treat your sister? Didn't your parents teach you any manners?
Who do you think you are? How I treat my sister is none of your business.
Nahum, I'm fine. And he doesn't mean it anyways. He's just really shy to admit how much he loves me.
It's just normal sibling banter.
What do you mean? Wait, Nahum? Oh, now I know. That's the guy you have a massive...
Now that I think about it, I might actually have to teach him more manners.
Be right back, Nahum. I have to go and kill my brother.
The speech is about to begin.
Don't mind me.
Have you found him?
Forgive me, Your Majesty. We have not been able to track down the Crown Prince yet, but we are doing our best.
Then what are you still standing here for? Go and look for him.
Yes, of course, Your Highness.
Ilias watched as the guard hastily stumbled out of the wide auditorium, past the crowd of men and women entering the hall. These people were all from influential families with long-lasting reputations to their names and wanted to watch the speech in person. He was standing on the sidelines of the stage with Sarai and Tamara, separated from the audience by the thin partition so that they couldn't be seen directly. He looked down after he felt a tug on the sleeve of his uniform. Tamara had reached for him, but she didn't look at him directly as her gaze was lowered. The sadness and shame on her face was plain to see. Just seeing his little girl like that was enough to tear at his already poor heart. Such a tiny girl, and yet she had to carry so much responsibility on her little shoulders. His already poor heart. Did she get the constitution of her mother and the temperament of her father? And Ira got temperament of her mother and the constitution of his father. Ilias knelt down by his daughter and gently lifted her head to look her straight in the eyes. With misty eyes, she tried to avoid him, but he gave her no chance.
Mishaps happen, sweetheart. And that's completely fine.
Don't cuddle her, Ilias. She had one job and she couldn't even do it properly. It was her responsibility to look after the Crown Prince, and now he's nowhere to be found.
Sarai?
Before Ilias was able to refute his wife, he felt his daughter's hand reach for his own, as though she didn't want him to stand up for her.
I apologize, Mother. Yes, you are right. This is my fault. I am to blame.
Good. Sarai, that's enough. The responsibility doesn't lie on Tamara. It lies on us, On you and me both as parents. If you want to blame someone for Ira constantly running away, you should start with yourself.
A good dad. Pain is hard to have to say these words, but he had enough. He could no longer bear to watch Sarai take out her own frustration and insecurities on their daughter time and time again. Sarai's eyes widened. Of all people, she probably hadn't expected that Ilias, someone who had always stood by her side since their childhood days, who had always offered her his shoulder to lean on at the worst times of her life, would now turn against her.
I see.
Taking a step back, she turned away from him and looked into the distance, rubbing her arm. Oh, my love, when will you ever be able to let others into your heart? Now the murmur of the audience had grown louder. The room had filled up and everyone had found their respective seats. It was about time.
Now that I think about it, where exactly is Rufus? Wasn't he supposed to give a short speech after yours?
Indeed. I was wondering the same.
At that moment, as if they had called for it, the door behind them burst open and a man out of breath stepped toward them.
Forgive me for my unsightly manners. I arrived as soon as I could, as I will be representing my brother in his stead. Due to his current health condition, he will not be with us today.
I understand. There's probably nothing that can be done about it. He already looked very sickly when he was welcoming us yesterday.
Ilias knew him, though even in passing, they hadn't exchanged a word. It was the man who had welcomed him together with Rufus the day prior. Darius, the bastard prince. At least that's what they called him at court. It was said that the previous leader of this Ark had fallen hopelessly in love with a prostitute from the slums and made her his concubine. And thus the man who now stood before them, trying to compose himself, had been conceived. Ilias recalled that the prince's concubine mother had unexpectedly passed away during his childhood due to an, air quotes, illness. Could have been straight-up illness, and that radicalized Darius, but over a few years after her passing, rumors of poisoning being the cause of her deaths began to spread. Okay, yep. Air quotes, illness. After all, it was no secret that the leader's wife, Rufus's mother, had harbored a grudge against that woman. What a pitiful man. Must have had a traumatic childhood, no doubt. Childhood, if you can even call something like that childhood. What a... I can... I feel like that one sentence is also very telling for Ilias's character. A royal who stands with that royal privilege to sort of instinctively and innately look down on people, yet still has a good heart. When he thinks, what a pitiful man, I'm sure he's thinking, this man is deserving of pity. But when you read the sentence, what a pitiful man, you think, this man is sad and pathetic. It's a line that offers pity for Darius's situation, yet has that innate royal condescension in it. Darius's eyes wandered to the watch on his wrist and then back to the royal family. With a nod, he pointed to the center of the stage.
It's time. The broadcast will begin in less than 2 minutes.
Understood.
Would the prince consort and the princess like to stand behind Her Majesty while she is giving her speech? The Arks residents would certainly be delighted to see the entire royal family together like this.
Entire? When first Ilias and Sarai exchanged confused looks, this was not part of the program. Originally, he and Tamar were supposed to remain on the sidelines as onlookers. With a sigh, Sarai closed her eyes and nodded.
Fine.
She cast one last glare at him with an expression Ilias knew only too well. The discussion isn't over yet, we'll talk later. He couldn't help but crack a smile. He then turned around and stepped toward her designated position, but when Sarai came into the spectators' line of sight, the auditorium's murmurs ceased.
Come now, sweetheart. Let's follow your mother.
He gently took hold of his daughter's hand, and together they followed his rather stubborn wife to the front and center of the stage. Standing a little to the side beside her, he tenderly placed his hands on Tamara's shoulders, who he had moved in front of her. Without wasting another second, Sarai began her speech as soon as she had received the cue. What do you think of relationship dynamics like that, where, looking at it as an outside observer, it looks like you're in love? And yet, Ilias here is still very clearly in love with his wife. And behind the scenes, when it's just them, they may be happy, but looking at them from outside, you might be thinking, red flags on this lady. It's a complicated relationship, no doubt. It's intriguing to think about. Why am I... Don't mind me rambling. Sorry. As Elias had expected, her voice resonated with grace and elegance, as though she meant every word she said. Yet he was the one who had actually written it. Ah! She almost seemed as though she wasn't harboring any negative emotions, though she wasn't dying of worry because her precious little boy had vanished without a trace. Ira. It would be lying if he said that he wasn't worried about the whereabouts of his son. After all, like tomorrow, he was his child, the child of the woman he loved, after all. Oh, this was his fault. Ira's impulsivity and the strange relationship between mother and daughter. If Ira hadn't inherited Ilias's weak heart, Sarai most likely wouldn't be so overprotective of him, which in turn meant that he wouldn't be so out of control. Now that I think about it, why did he refer to us as the entire royal family despite Ira being missing? Why didn't he even bother to ask about him? He looked at the man standing on the sidelines, who simply returned a broad smile, feigning ignorance. Huh? There was something irritating Elias, however. It was a small beeping sound that rang in his ears and yet was barely perceivable. Where did it come from? Without wanting to attract unnecessary attention during Sarai's speech, he looked around cautiously. In an instant he faltered. Where did he go? Darius, the man who had smiled at him just a few seconds earlier, had disappeared. Immediately, Elias's stomach began to twist, a sweat formed on his palms, and the grip of his daughter's shoulders tightened. Then, as though he already knew, his eyes wandered up to the canopy of the stage as an ice-cold shiver caused him to choke. Amidst the pipes, poles, and panels that held the roofing together, countless small red lights blinked down to him, hardly noticeable unless one paid closer attention to them. Bombs.
Long live the future of humanity! Long live the...
One desperate attempt, Elias lunged forward. Clutching his daughter tightly onto him with one arm, he pushed Sarai forward and off the stage, using all the strength he could muster with the other. He had to protect them, come what may. Even if he had to give his life in return, he had to...